And I did see that I'm doing the pledge.
Next time, Levi, I will text you and see if you want to back up.
Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, June 28th, 2018 regular session of the Xenia City Council. We've been in special session just a few moments ago discussing budget, and we are ready to begin our regular session. At this time, we will first have an invocation led by Mr. Charlie Huff, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Vice President Edgar Wallace. If you would rise with me, please, for the invocation and pledge.
Good evening to all of you. It's good to see you once again as we come together. Would you bow with me and as we pray? Father in heaven, as Jesus told the disciples to pray, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray, seek me, I'll hear from heaven and heal your land. Thank you, Father, as we come together today, every day, to thank you for this day, to praise your holy name and to lift our petitions up to you and to ask you to be with us. Lord, I ask you to be with every council member, friends of mine, children of yours. I ask you to be with them and direct and guide them in everything they say and do. Our troops overseas in harm's way, protecting this country, we pray for those. I pray for this city of hospitality, and thank you for the ones who run the city and take care of everything for us, Lord. Thank you. The policeman that protects us, and there's another shooting today. Oh, Lord, there's so much to pray to you about, and prayer is the key to the kingdom, and we come to you humbly tonight, Lord, to talk to you, and you know our hearts. Thank you, Father, for the firefighters that protect us, the hospitals and the nursing homes that help the sick. Lord, you are our healer, our creator, our God, our Savior. Thank you. As we come to you together in unity, let us love one another. Second greatest commandment there is, Lord. So we come together in love to you, our Father, who art in heaven, and hallowed be thy name. In Jesus' name we come and pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Huff and Vice President Wallace. May I have roll call, please?
Vice President Wallace.
Here.
Councilman Scrivens.
Here.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Here.
Councilman Smith.
Here.
Councilman Dean.
Here.
Mayor Mays.
Here.
President Engel.
Here. Thank you. At this time, may I have a motion, please, for approval of our minutes, June the 14th, 2018, our regular session.
So moved, Mr. President.
Moved by Councilman Lauterbach. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scrivens. Any discussion or question on the minutes, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Abstain.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. This time we have an opportunity for a special presentation by Green Memorial Hospital. Mr. Jeff Brock, Jared Kersoma, Rick Dodds, please.
Kersoma.
Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. My name is Rick Dodds, and I'm president of Green Memorial Hospital and Soin Medical Center. It's just an honor to be here with you tonight. And tonight I'm going to give you an update on Green Memorial Hospital and some of the great things that we're doing and tell you about an important community that we like to take care of. and also just share with you some of the great things that are happening at the hospital. I think it's important. So this is just an update for your information tonight, and feel free to ask questions as we're going about. Is that okay?
Thank you.
All right, sounds good. So as we look overall, our mission is to improve the quality of life in the communities we serve. So as you can look and see, obviously improving the quality of life has many facets through healthcare and education. We're licensed as a 49-bed hospital, support rural healthcare in Eastern Greene County. We currently have rural health clinics as well in Yellow Springs and Cedarville. So not only does the mission live well within the Xenia community, but it also extends out. I'll give you some stats to talk about how that extends also into the future. So let's talk about some of our current services here. And this is just a highlight of a few, so I want to be very clear. This is only a few of our services. If you look at our emergency room, 24/7 emergency service. I want to highlight this though. We were the first level 3 trauma in the state of Ohio. So that's a neat trivia, because Greene Memorial Hospital still holds true to that trauma designation. Going through my first trauma survey, most recently, actually the second trauma survey, is a fun experience, but there's a clear halo effect of quality of care that you get from a trauma service. And so it's just an honor to be able to talk about trauma and be able to have that right here in Xenia. That's a really key part. Stroke ready, and we'll talk about some numbers here in just a few minutes. We're stroke ready center certification. That's where minutes matter. And we were first in the nation from a stroke perspective on this. So we are cutting edge and leading the way. The innovation that we have really does stem from an amazing culture of continuing to advance healthcare, because we're people in the community caring for others in the community as well. That's very important to us. Imaging and lab services. We have satellites all across the county. We're going to see some numbers here in a little bit. You'll see some of the satellite services that all flow back into here in Xenia, which is very important. Inpatient with ICU and surgical coverage and surgical services. We also have key women's services. This is included with the Kettering Breast Evaluation Center. We were the first one in the Kettering Health Network to have a 3D tomo machine, which reduces callbacks by over 40% from a mammogram, and it really does increase the quality of care. So that local quality care is very important, and we were the first one cutting edge to do that right here at Greene. And cardiac services, with the county's only cardiac rehab center. And our cardiac rehab center is extremely important. This is that health and wellness, advancing the cardiac services that are important so individuals help stay out of the hospital too. So it's that health and wellness aspect that continues to live well there. Orthopedic services with physical therapy center, an extremely busy physical therapy center, may I add. And some of us have experienced that as well. And just an absolutely phenomenal staff. I'm going to feature one of our staff members here in just a few minutes in that as well. Diabetes center, as you know, diabetes is extremely prevalent within our county. We do a great job with the health in Greene County, overall in Xenia as well. However, diabetes continues to be a growing trend, and we're trying to curb that with the diabetes center also. Wound center, sleep center, and this is where it extends out a little bit further, as well as key cancer care right here close to home. So 2017 by the numbers, just a couple features. Number of staff, there's 408 individuals at Greene Memorial Hospital who are employed there. Number of physicians is 332. Now that's a little larger because there's certain groups that are credentialed that may not always be there, but they're credentialed there. So that's what this is talking about. Number of volunteers, we have 135 amazing volunteers, and just absolutely phenomenal, the passion that they have in serving others. Inpatient days, 8,500. Now this is a key stat right here, outpatient encounters. Over 100,000 outpatient encounters come through our Greene Memorial Hospital. So it really is key. Individuals from the community depend upon us to continue that life-saving care. Not only when there is acute care services like a trauma, this is that keeping people out of the hospital type of service or follow-up from hospital care as well. And then there's emergency visits, over 21,000 emergency visits right here at our level 3 trauma center. So from Xenia, just to highlight a few things, there's 15,000 ED visits just from the city of Xenia alone, 1,591 inpatients overall from the city of Xenia. So as you can tell, Xenia really depends upon us for that life-saving care. It's important to the community. Current average daily census, we're licensed for 49 beds, as I said. Our current average daily census is 41. That's a big change from a few years ago. Many of us can remember. And so we are just thrilled and honored to be able to continue to do that. Current average daily emergency room visits is over 60. So that's 60 people who depend upon us for that care. In addition to, we do have an urgent care right here in town also as well. So we do offer that care with different options also. Continuing forward, I'm going to talk about a few enhancements. So it's important to know these are 49 private rooms. In the city of Dayton, there are still semi-private rooms. And if any of you have had a hospital inpatient stay, you know having a neighbor can be good in a home. You always want to be nice to your neighbors, but in a hospital stay, it's the last thing that you want, honestly. And so to have private rooms is a big deal. When you look at these private rooms, there's enhancements that we've made. As you can see a picture here, they are state-of-the-art. It may have been, hopefully it's been a little while since you've been in the hospital, but if you've visited someone or even experienced, you can see that there's life-saving, there's a number of equipment that we've upgraded. You've got computer screens along the right-hand side that have been added right bedside. And if you'll notice, those computer screens always face the patient, so we don't take our eyes off patients, in addition to the lighting that's been updated as well. If you walk inside of our emergency center, which is very busy, you'll notice our emergency center has changed. We've really updated the look, the feel, the enhancements, what really does contribute to healing as well. So these are just some visual cues. If you walk in the front entrance through that front door, you'll see a little bit different front lobby as well. It's much more light, much more airy. It really does create that center of healing and that passion for healing as well. And so I know Dale, we had an opportunity to visit with Dale recently, and appreciate you inviting us over, Dale, to give an update as well, because it's meaningful.
My pleasure.
And as well, as you can see, we've got advanced seating and waiting areas, different areas, so you can see we've updated a number of things. Now, hospitals should be good at a few things. Patient experience and quality, I think, is a strong passion. We lead with quality. At Green Memorial Hospital, we just received a very important distinction. Health Grades independently rated us in the top 10% in the nation for patient safety. This is a big deal, because Green is among the top 10% of individuals in the nation in 14 preventable safety events. These are things that are not supposed to happen within a hospital, but they do, because human error. We're imperfect people trying to provide perfect care. So really, these things do happen in hospitals, but your hospital right here in Xenia is among the top 10% in the nation for making sure to take care of our patients. That's a big deal. When you look at why we're responsible for that type of quality, really the why is our people. We have an exceptional culture. I just wanted to highlight two of them, but to speak to a macro, and then I'll get to micro. From a macro level, your Green Memorial Hospital scored at the 93rd percentile in the nation for employee engagement. 93rd percentile. There's only 7% of hospitals in the nation that scored better. That's the highest in Kettering Health Network. So that's pretty neat. An engaged culture creates engaged patients, creates quality outcomes. That's the way we lead. So it's a triple aim. There's a number of triple aims in the future and value-based, but this is where we're focused on. That's Paul Turner and Roxanne Turner. Some of you, if you're involved with Bridges of Hope, may know Paul Turner. Paul Turner is passionate. He starts out before his shift even begins. He goes over to Bridges of Hope and volunteers and make sure to take care of our community where it's needed. Roxanne and Paul are absolutely amazing people. These are just two of the individuals that are distinctive and really truly make a difference in our culture. When you look at physicians, you know, one of the most important items that supports a community is in primary care. I'm very passionate about primary care because it's that frontline individual. It's where the whole healthcare continuum traditionally starts if you've established care somewhere. So we have 332 physicians on staff, but I want to talk about primary care in our Greene County right here. Currently, Kettering Physician Network has added 3 in 2017. We're going to be adding a whole bunch more in 2018. So it's an honor to welcome Dr. Sherritt's group to our Kettering Health Network. He'll begin on August the 6th seeing patients. In addition to the entire group, Dr. Brunsman, Dr. Jenks, Dr. Halderman, and Dr. Schmidt, in addition to 3 amazing nurse practitioners. Because it really is, when you look at evolution of healthcare, it's about that access, right? You want to be able to have access to the key healthcare when we need it. And we've increased by nurse practitioners as well. And so if you'll notice, joining in 2018, we've got 3 that will serve in Xenia that are already slated or have already joined us, and another 5 will serve in Jamestown. So that continues to foster. And then when those services are needed from these key outlying areas, what they do is they receive those services right here in Xenia. And so it's a key hub and spoke model that's very important to us. So I'm just going to turn it over and introduce Jared Karasoma. Jared Karasoma is our VP of Operations, and truly on a day-to-day basis does an exceptional job making sure our hospital runs. In addition to Jeff Brock, who I'm sure all of you know, because who doesn't know Jeff Brock? But obviously Jared Karasoma, and he's going to share a story with you, a letter.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jared Karasoma. Thank you, Rick. So honored to be here today to present an amazing place to work. Green Memorial is just so special in my heart. And just wanted to share a quick story with you all. It was a patient that had taken the time to write to us to thank our nurses, our providers for the care they received. And I'll just read it word for word. All right. I would like to give a huge thank you publicly to Green Memorial Hospital Intensive Care Unit staff of nurses for their phenomenal care of my husband in the past 13 days. He went in via squad, was on a ventilator for 5 days, renal failure, and on dialysis continuously for 3 days, liver failure, heart attack, didn't open his eyes until day 8, had memory loss and confusion from encephalopathy. That's from all, thank you, from all the toxicity in his body. We came so close to losing him. He slowly recovered and is headed to rehab tomorrow. And just all those problems had to be so scary. Just thinking of my family, having someone come in like that. First and foremost, they say, prayer works. I've never been through anything like this in my life. Did not know what to expect day to day sitting by his bedside. The ICU staff was kind, compassionate, patient, comforting, explained things to my son and I in terms we could understand. They were encouraging, helpful, honest, and I will forever be grateful to GMH and this phenomenal team of nurses who were there for us day after day, and all night. To come so close to losing your spouse was heart-wrenching, but he made it. Thank you, ICU nurses, the team of doctors at GMH, and everyone involved in his care. And we get these almost every day, where we're able to give back to our community. It's a mission, and again, it's a major reason I'm so proud to work for Green Memorial Hospital. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, are there any questions?
Questions?
Not a question, just a comment. I know I can speak for everybody up here. We're very happy you're in Xenia.
Oh,
And,
it's an honor.
yeah, it's a great hospital. And, I didn't realize till tonight you have, 400 and some employees.
That's right.
That adds to our tax base too.
It sure does, yeah.
And, we're happy you're in Xenia. Hope to stay here for quite a while.
Yep, we will.
Okay.
It's an honor.
Mr. President, I'd like to add that I was at your facility today
Ah, very good.
and met a number of the staff, Kevin and Cheyenne and all.
Yep.
And was all down in the basement. And
Yep.
we did what we had to do. And for about 15 minutes, after I spoke to him, he said, "Well, that's phenomenal." I said, "No, but that's how we feel about the hospital. It's the center of our well-being in the community."
It is.
And you know, when you have a population of 25,000 and 100,000 visits,
That's right.
that says a lot. So thank you a bunch, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate it.
Anything else, please?
I had occasion to actually be a patient at Gurney in the last year. I was issues with hypoglycemia, and I've heard people say that if they had to go to the hospital, they were going to go to sewing. Of course, you'd like that because you're both president in both places. But
We're going to serve
I told him
wherever is necessary.
I told him, I said, I have absolutely no complaints at all about the services that I received when I was a patient at Green. And if I had to have an emergency visit, I'd be very happy to be transported back there and cared for there, because my primary care is with the Kettering Health Network, and of course, most of my visits for care is at Green, and I'm very happy with the services that I've received there.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Councilman.
I'll say something. I also was at the hospital today. One of the stories that I wanted to highlight is when I had a family member who was admitted, and it was a very emotional time. And one of the things that stuck out to us was when the chaplain came by, and how much we appreciated the faith-based element of the hospital. But what was even more important is it was a local pastor volunteering, and I loved that. It meant a lot to this family member that it was somebody that we could connect with very easily because it was a local pastor. So I wanted to say thank you, and thank you for being a faith-based hospital, because that's so important to care not just for the physical side, but the emotional and spiritual. So thank you.
Absolutely. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Green Memorial, not just as a hospital in our community, but you partner with so many organizations, and your outreach is phenomenal. I see your truck at a lot of events, community festivals, Greene County Parks and Trails, the bike. My neighbor Diane works for you guys, she's a phenomenal nurse in your ER, and you guys just keep her busy, and you're in the community because you care, and I really appreciate that. So thank you. We always hope to always have you in Xenia where you're at. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's our plan as well. Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate it.
Anything else?
Mr. President, I just wanted to add one other thing.
Yes.
I too have been a patient at Greene Memorial. I was an 11-day stay, and that was because I had to have emergency surgery. I'll tell you a quick anecdote. I called my friend about 5 a.m. and said, man, you got to come pick me up, take me to Miami Valley. I said, I'm sick. I was on the floor, in the bed, in the chair, in the trash can. And he came and picked me up. I said, open the back window. I'll hang out like a lapdog. I said, he said, I'm taking you to Greene Memorial. And thank God he did. And I had to have emergency surgery. Dr. Deutsch performed the procedure. He and Dr. Bailey and Dr. Madison. And my life depended on them. And one of the reasons why I'm here today is because of them. Now, the reason why I stayed 11 days, I had peritonitis. I had gotten an infection after they sliced me and diced me, but they took care of me. So I had a perforated ulcer and almost checked out. That was part of the first part. Part of the second part was a 5-heart bypass.
Wow.
As a result of Dr. Coriam coming in, giving a consultation while I was there doing an 11-day stay, then going for stress tests and everything. He said, Mr. Scrimmage, you have a heart muscle of a young man. I'm good. I'm playing singles tennis, you know.
That's the way to be.
And he said, and your valves are good, you know, pulmonic, aortic, mitral, tricuspid. He said, but all of your vessels are blocked. 70, 80, 90, and 99%. Well, you only have 6.
Wow.
So instead of me going directly to Grandview, where Dr. Crusestra performed the surgery, I understand now he's in Arizona or somewhere.
I believe so.
And I went in on a Tuesday, got out on a Sunday. Could have got out on a Saturday. Asked Dr. K. I said, man, can I stay one more day? I said, this is like being at the Hilton. Got women coming in, you know, taking care of your boy, the whole bit.
And good food.
So, but all in all, I'm thoroughly impressed with the professionalism, with the caliber of treatment, the sensitivity, and the mission
That's right.
of the whole hospital system, of the Carolina medical system. So I just want to say thank you, sir. And I'm here as a result, 7 years ex post facto of a 5-heart bypass. So my life is in your hands. I thank you very much.
It's an honor to serve you and everyone in the community. And I got to tell you, we've got an incredible team who deserve each one of those comments. And just an absolutely phenomenal team.
Thank you.
Thank you each.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you
Mr.
coming and updating us, and we certainly, as we've heard, greatly appreciate your presence in the community. Look forward to it for many decades to come.
So do we.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, at this time, we have an opportunity for audience comments. Anyone wishing to come and address the Xenia City Council, please feel free to do so. Step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 4 to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. John Kelp, 936 Orville Way. Appreciate the presentation from Greene Memorial Hospital. As a former city councilman, they provide a vital need in our community. There is one question, though, that used to always come up when I was a council member, still comes up today, and I think maybe some of you council members would have the same question. We were presented 408 staff members for Greene Memorial Hospital, and maybe Jared can answer that question for us during audience comments, but of those 408, as a taxpayer, I would, you know, we're always talking about growing our tax base and growing our taxable jobs in the city of Xenia. I'd like to know how many of those 408 staff positions are actually taxed within the city of Xenia here and from Greene Memorial. So, you know, some of those possibly, you know, are staff members on staff, but yet, you know, maybe they work at, or get their wages through sewing or whatnot. So I'd like to know exactly how many people are taxed here in the city of Xenia of those 408. The last council meeting, I brought up cutting some wages, benefit, not wages, but cutting some benefits and making cuts to the budget. And city manager brought up some things at the end of the meeting, and, you know, I don't get a chance to respond to the city manager at the end of the meeting, so I wanted to respond to some of that tonight. 85% of our budget is wages and benefits. We have a problem. We are asking for a levy from our taxpayers tonight. And I appreciate Councilman Lauterbach and Councilman Dean for taking the position that they understand that if we tax our citizens any more, that we're not going to attract the very people that we need to attract in our community to grow our tax base. I mean, we are to the point where property taxes, dual income family, you know, I can go live in a $300,000 house in Beaver Creek and pay less taxes than I am in the city of Xenia with the property taxes and the income taxes. So we're about to put a levy on the ballot to possibly tax our citizens even more. Where do we start? It has to start somewhere. I get that everything is negotiated through contracts. We have, I think it's 7 bargaining units in the city. I get it. But it's got to start somewhere. It's got to start with the non-union employees and then trickle down and start negotiating into those contracts. Did anybody look at the staff before they negotiated contracts this year and say, hey, look, we've got to try to save some money here? The city manager brought up that, you know, he made it sound like it was a struggle to meet that 9.5% threshold for affordability of our health care. That 9.5% is a threshold that they have to meet. It's the affordability safe harbor for the city. They've got to meet that on an individual basis. So if you have an employee that's making $40,000 a year, he can't spend any more than $3,800 a year for his individual health insurance. Doesn't include dependents, doesn't include spouse, it's just for him. So we have $2,400 that you can move on the health care. It doesn't include HSAs. $3,500 we put into our HSA account for a family. Our opt-out program last year was $616,000 that we paid in opt-out fees. If the employee gets put on the hook a little bit for those HSA dollars, perhaps some of those people opt out on their own and don't take our health insurance. What's wrong with looking at an employee and say, hey, you need to have some skin in the game here? We'll match 50 cents per dollar up to, say, $2,000. The employee puts in $4,000. If they put in $4,000 in their HSA, we would put in $2,000. Well, guess what? Not that many employees are going to put $4,000 out of their own pocket in their HSA. So you're going to save even more money. So what's wrong with a 50 cent on the dollar match? Something to start cutting some expenses in the city. Because when this tax levy fails, what are we going to do? We can't just leave the streets continue to deteriorate. Like I said, find another $1 million, put $1.5 million a year towards the streets, and then ask for a smaller levy. Maybe the citizens of Xenia will pass that. Maybe. But we can't just continue to not have a work session to discuss budget cuts, to not be prepared. Council hasn't had a work session to discuss budget cuts at all. They're just kicking the can down the road, hoping that a tax levy passes. And it's probably not going to pass. I mean, the citizens that are sitting here in the audience tonight, the ones that are behind their computer screens at home watching, they're not cowards. They're frustrated. They're upset. They expect services. They expect roads. They don't expect patches. But they're not cowards. They want answers. They want to know why you spent $500,000 on a house. Where'd that money come from? I'd be concerned if I lived on Richard Drive. I mean, if you spent $500,000 on a house right behind mine, I would be concerned I have an issue. We're in lawsuits. When I was on council, we were sold a bill of goods. There was a biodiesel company going to come in to the H&A property. Here we are 5, 6 years later, no company, we're looking at a field. Who was held accountable for selling council on that bill of goods that, you know what, if we did this, you know, this company's gonna come in, same deal with the Kmart property. We were sold a bill of goods. If we bought that Kmart building, we would have this business come in and this developer come in, and we were actually gonna make money selling the property to a developer. We've lost money on that property. Lost money on that property. But I assure you, the people that are asking these questions are not cowards. Cowards is sitting in that room back there instead of out here looking at the taxpayers while you have a work session. Cowards are looking at the desk, not looking at me while I'm talking to you. Thank you very much.
Anyone else care to come and address the Xenia City Council this evening, please?
Hello, my name is Susan Lopez. My address is 1036 Highview Drive. I actually live in Beaver Creek, but I come before you because I'm running for Greene County Commissioner. And so I wanted to explain to people exactly my background and who I am, and also to you, so you get to know me. The Commission's main budget is in human services, and the commissioners at this time really do not have a background in human services. And that is what I would bring to the Commission, because my background is mostly in human services. I have grown up in Greene County. I have worked for the county, and actually while working for the county, I got an award, which is very rare in the county to get an award, by the way. Also wanted to let you know that you guys are very respectful, by the way. I've been in meetings where they don't look at you, by the way, and you guys are. So it's tough. It's financially tough right now, and I get that for everybody. And so I feel for the audience and for you right now as you have to deal with your budget. But I promise you on the commission that I will work within the budget that we have. And my intent is not to get on the commission and raise the budget at all. So thank you very much for your time.
Would anyone else care to come and address the Xenia City Council this evening, please? Seeing no one else, we will move to old business. First item under old business is ordinance 2018-18. A second reading, which is levying assessments for the improvements of city streets and public ways by the lighting thereof within Lighting District Number 2 for the years 2019 through 2022, originally introduced by Vice President Wallace.
Move the approval.
Moved for
Passage.
approval. And may I have a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lauterbach. Discussion or question on this motion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is a resolution 2018-P, a second reading, declaring the necessity of levying a property tax in excess of the 10 mil of the limitation for street purposes and requesting certification from the Greene County Auditor. I originally introduced that motion. I originally introduced that piece of legislation, and I will move its passage at this time. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by the Vice President. Any discussion or question on the motion, please?
Question. So actually, how many mills is this going to be? Is it 10 or 3.5?
No, so it's a 3.5 mil levy, and I know there's some confusion about the way it's printed on the agenda. It's referencing the 10 mil limitation for the
Right,
county,
right.
but it's a 3.5 mil tax levy.
Other discussion or question on the motion, please?
Mr. President.
Councilman?
That 3.5 mil will generate what?
Well, the estimate is 1.3 million. Actually, what this resolution does is it requests a number from the county auditor. So as we certify this over to the county, he'll actually provide the number. But it's estimated somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.3 million annually.
Mr. President, I'm really not for a tax increase. However, I am for the citizens of Xenia making the decision as to whether or not they want to pony up for better streets. And in that, I would probably support this.
Thank you. Other discussion, please. Councilman?
I've been on record as saying I cannot support it. Yeah, I'm glad the citizens get a chance to vote, but we as council people have to take a position one way or the other. So I'm confident about the future of growing our tax base. I've got a plan B, and that's grow our tax base. You heard Kettering Hospital. We've got the REACH project, going to grow our tax base. We've got a couple of things on the front burner. We've got a couple of things on the back burner. That's going to bring some good paying jobs to the city. And I think we can do it without a tax increase. We've got a new governor. Either governor is going to be better than the one we have. So I look for local government funds to be addressed. And I look for President Trump to have an infrastructural bill next year. It's going to trickle down to cities. So I think if people can be patient, we can do this without a tax increase. Thank you.
Other discussion on the motion, please. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just have a statement, and I apologize if I'm reading it because I go off when I don't have something prepared. So, and I want to say that I am in support of putting this on the ballot because I really feel we have no choice. I am empathetic to both sides. However, you know, the last several months, especially this spring, we've heard a lot of talk about our road conditions here in Xenia. However, Xenia is not the only community immune to the aging streets and infrastructure in our community. In recent years, we've heard of our nation's crumbling infrastructure, so often it's just become cliche. Deteriorating highways and bridges, out-of-date and overcrowded schools, lack of affordable housing, U.S. residents lacking transportation access. Many are looking to our federal government for help. Cities are shouldering more costs historically covered by state and federal governments, despite facing limitations in the scope and the number of funding tools which have been available to us. And in a minute, I'll discuss how the state of Ohio, while accepting our tax dollars, has not been a fair steward of our money. In Xenia, we are well aware of our street situation and the fact that the streets are in poor condition. It's real. We live in our community, and as council members, we drive the roads to our homes and to our employers. And why did the roads go to heck so fast? Why this year were they so bad? This principal phenomenon of interest is the infamous freeze-thaw cycle. Snow falls, it melts, it seeps into the cracks, and it freezes again. The pressure of the expanding ice breaks up the pavement. Another factor is road salt. Many times the city is critical when we don't apply enough solvent to our streets. However, when we do, it just filters down in the concrete and corrodes our roads even more. So if we could do something about winter, I think half of our problem would disappear, but that's not realistic. I wish roads would last a lot longer if it weren't for vehicles driving on them, but that's what the roads are for. And it's not uncommon to hear of highways in the United States in urban areas carrying double or more of the traffic that they were originally designed for. Progress Drive is probably one of our biggest streets that falls in that perception. Trucks are problematic, and the blame for the street condition in our town can basically be attributed to underfunding in the past, well before most of us have come on council. The City Council, we've heard your concerns, and we've taken action to repair the streets. This year, more money has been spent historically than in any years past. We've overturned rocks. We've looked for money. We've added more to the budget. A volunteer group of citizens this spring comprised of former mayors, business owners, homeowners, etc. They met to prepare a plan to present to our council. In their findings, a recommendation was to place a street levy on the ballot. This levy is temporary, and it would only fund repairs to bring streets to a minimum standard within 7 years. But what about the rainy day or reserve fund that Xenia has? Many times we're asked, why don't we just dip into our reserve fund? Xenia's reserve fund is a mandatory amount that would fund operations in an emergency situation, and this is required by law. Taking or borrowing from these funds would possibly be setting the city for a financial failure. Prior to my first term on council 8 years ago, our city did not even have a street program. The policy was only to fill potholes. I believe $50,000 was all allocated in 2010. How long that was a policy, I do not know because it predates my term on council, but I can tell you that it did not do us any favors. That's where we're at today. City Council promised that if the income tax levy was approved by the voters in 2010, at least $500,000 would be allocated to the street fund. This promise has been met or exceeded every year. The state of Ohio has cut our local government funds, as well as many cities across the state in the Miami Valley. Even with the income tax increase, we are now just to par due to the billions that have been cut to local communities like Xenia in the form of local government cuts. Meanwhile, our state of Ohio sits on a rainy day fund, and I checked it today, well in excess of $2 billion. Xenia and what has been done with Xenia, that the money has been given to us by the tax levy, income tax levy, entrusted to council. What have we done with your money? We've ensured citizens' safety by reinstating cuts made in first responders back in 2010. Firefighters and police were laid off. They have been brought back. We've added actually even more EMS due to safer grants. We've invested in police cruisers, ambulances, and fire trucks. We made $1 million improvement in the safety to Shawnee Park Pavilion in the area adjacent to the pond. Quality of life investments have also improved other parks like Sterling Green, Spring Hill, and Sul Arnovitz. A creation of a no-fee splash pad last year is rivaled by even our neighbors in Beaver Creek and Kettering. We've met our match dollars towards grants and improvements. We've made improvements to our dispatch and police station, our justice center, and our city hall, allowing ADA compliant accessibility to our finance department, our utility payment, our planning and zoning offices, and even these council chambers that we're sitting in today. The city has partnered with Greene County Engineers Office to achieve even more favorable bids in street repairs, working harder to spend your money as quickly as we can to get as much bang for the buck. The city has made investments into Town Square and to the REACH project. Every appointed official that sits next to me on the right has been directed by this council to create realistic budget forecasts, and no stone is overlooked. This council has been dealt a deck of cards or a hand of cards, and we cannot make our employees take pay cuts and slash their insurance benefits. Why? Because 90% of our budget is employees, and 90% of our employees are under a union contract. I've seen improvements in contracts even this spring that our city has saved us a lot of money in the future by making concessions in contracts. Right now, our first responders are working hard to keep us safe. And unfortunately, they do not work cheap. A cradle-to-grave minimum wage is not going to work anymore with the labor force as low as it is in today's market. Our application pool for first responders has dwindled, and we are losing good officers and EMS workers to our neighbor in Beaver Creek. Asking our employees to take a cut now in their wages almost seems like a cruel joke. Police officers are putting their life on the line. Every day, an officer in our country is a target. I would urge all my colleagues on this council to consider allowing the street levy to be put on the ballot. If it fails, then it fails. The voters spoke. Plan B is what we got this year. Plan B is what we did this year, and Plan B next year will be what we did this year. We will do the best with what we have. At the recommendation of the Citizens Review, I think the time to save our streets is now. and not wait until further deterioration. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, please?
Well stated. It is what it is. Our job now is to realize what it is and then to move.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments, roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace,
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye.
Councilman Louderback,
No.
Councilman Smith,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
No.
Mayor Mays,
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Our next item is Resolution 2018-Q, a second reading, authorizing the city manager to use negotiations or informal competition for the sale of certain city-owned properties and any fixtures thereon, originally introduced by Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move for passage.
Thank you. A second, please. I'll second. Any discussion or question on this motion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace,
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye.
Councilman Louderback,
Aye.
Councilman Smith,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Mays,
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We have no public hearings scheduled this evening. We'll move to new business. Under new business, our first item, is ordinance 2018-19, an emergency, amending ordinance 2018-17 to provide appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of Xenia, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018, and declaring it to be an emergency. Mr. City Manager, please.
Thank you, sir. In line with council's expectations, the city's annual budget is planned in an austere manner, keeping our operating expenses reasonably low. Because of this approach, it is necessary from time to time to appropriate additional resources for issues and opportunities that arise during the course of a fiscal year. This evening, ordinance 2018-19 is recommended to provide some additional funds for several operating lines, and they include the following: additional funding for legal services for the city's closed landfill as we seek a final resolution with the Ohio EPA on gas monitoring, resources to restock water main appurtenances which were required for the replacement near the site of the Reach Center, funding to offset greater than anticipated fleet repair and maintenance expenses for the fire division. This includes major repairs needed for Medic 33 and Engine 32. It should be noted that two of our fire service staff vehicles have been struck in traffic accidents this year, neither of which were the fault of city employees. Both of those incidents, the motorist at fault had no insurance. As a result, our fire division has to pay our insurance deductible, and we have to eat that, so that has obviously factored into their available budget in that line. And finally, our administrative leadership is seeking to pursue some services for the development of departmental business plans to improve our performance measurement and accountability, and so we're looking for some resources to carry that through. So this evening, staff is recommending the ordinance to provide the resources for these needs and opportunities.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion, please, as an emergency?
So move.
Moved by Councilman Scrivens. Second, please.
A second.
Seconded by the Vice President. Any discussion or question on this motion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace,
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye.
Councilman Louderback,
Aye.
Councilman Smith,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Mays,
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Our next item is Resolution 2018-R, an emergency, authorizing the city manager to execute the LPA agreement and all necessary documents with ODOT for the resurfacing of West 2nd Street from Progress Drive to Massey Drive project and declaring it an emergency. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. City staff was successful in being awarded an STP grant for the resurfacing of a portion of West 2nd Street. As indicated, that would run from Progress Drive to Massey Drive. As with all such grants, the city is required to sign the local partnership agreement in order for the award to be completed. Staff is recommending council authorize the execution of that LPA through the approval of this resolution 2018-R. And that we adopt that measure this evening as an emergency due to the rigid and aggressive timeline that's established with the state of Ohio on these grants. Wanted to add with this, we got, unrelated to this particular grant, news that the city will be have resources available to us next year as part of a prior OPWC grant request we had made. We were denied, but we were the first community outside of funding, and so they had extra funding. So we'll have about $300,000 available to us next year. That would be programmed toward repaving of 2nd Street. So what this will do, We've got to come up with some additional dollars on our end to meet the match, which we will undoubtedly do. But we'll be able to then repave 2nd Street from, essentially from 42 all the way out to Progress Drive from curb to curb. Complete repaving, as well as a lot of the concrete work as we would put our CDBG dollars toward that concrete work. So that'll be a big project next year. That'll be where the majority of our resources go next year in terms of our street funding project. But that's a combination of 3 grants as well as local dollars, of which this is a part.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please, as an emergency?
So move as an emergency, Mr. President.
Emergency motion by the Vice President. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lauterbach. Any discussion or question on this motion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace,
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Our next item is Resolution 2018-S, an emergency, authorizing a then and now payment of $18,150 to Comp Management for Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation Services and declaring an emergency. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. As indicated, Resolution 2018-S essentially is a housekeeping item related to the services provided for our workers' comp program management. These standard management services are provided on an annual basis by the firm Comp Management. And typically, a new blanket PO is opened at the beginning of each fiscal year for the ensuing year's services. And frankly, just an error of omission, the PO for Comp Management was not opened this year while the services were on a continued basis from the prior year. This results in the need for a then and now resolution to authorize the payment. Again, funds are budgeted and PO has been subsequently opened, but it's necessary to approve the then and now measure for us to be compliant with our financial management requirements set for us by the state. So just a housekeeping item this evening.
Thank you. We have a motion, please, as an emergency.
So moved as an emergency.
Moved by the mayor as an emergency. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Dean. Okay.
I thought it was.
That's
Oh,
fine.
doesn't
He
matter.
Councilman Smith? I heard it come out from my right ear. I missed which one said it. Apologies, gentlemen. Any discussion or question on this motion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace,
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Our next item is ordinance 2018-20, an introduction, establishing a 20-foot disability parking space in front of 201, West 2nd Street. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, thank you. Ordinance 2018-20 is presented for consideration relative to parking. If approved, this ordinance would establish a 20-foot disability space in front of 201 West 2nd Street. The request for consideration of the space designation came from the resident at that address, and our engineering staff vetted through our normal requirements when we consider this type of thing, and those requirements were met. The request was presented to the Traffic Commission for consideration, and the Commission did vote affirmatively to support or endorse on June 4th. So this evening, staff presents the ordinance to council for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there an introduction from one of my colleagues, please?
So introduced.
Introduced by Councilman Lauterbach. Thank you. And our final item under new business is an administrative motion approving the schedule of bills in the amount of $417,036.94. Mr. Finance Director, anything to add?
I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lauterbach. Second, please.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Dean. Any discussion or question on any of the bills, please?
Give us a second.
Did you have a question, Councilman?
When we get these electronically, it's hard to crunch these numbers, so have to come down and pick the hard copy up earlier in the week. No problem.
Thank you. Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace,
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye?
Councilman Lauterbach,
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. At this time, we have reports of committees. The only item we have is Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission. Councilman Lauterbach, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unfortunately, I was out of town, not able to attend the meeting, but can I go back, Brent, with the West Second Street? Are you saying next year we got a grant from who?
It's OPWC, Ohio Public Works Commission, as part of their grant program. So we were we had submitted a grant request. We were denied, but we were the first one denied on the list, and there were additional funds that were not utilized as part of the other funded projects, and so they came back to us. It wasn't the total amount that we had requested in grant, but it was pretty close. It was about $300,000, and so we had one segment of roadway that would not be completed. With everything else we have lined up for Second Street next year, this will help us to complete that entire stretch of road.
And I'll sound like a broken record, but these grants are very important to us. If we turn them down, it's, I mean, I'm not saying I support every government grant, but if we turn them down, then we're going to go to the bottom of the list.
And again, I want to give credit to our staff members, particularly our engineering staff and development planning staff, who, you know, we've cobbled together a series of funding resources, either grant fundings through MVRPC or grant funding through community development block grants, and that's going to allow us to finish that entire roadway next year, again, curb to curb, including replacement of some of the curbing and other concrete work. If we were using just local dollars, we would have resources maybe to do a third of that.
And part of these funds are CDBG.
Yeah.
Can you explain to, most of the time, this is the first time I remember that we used them for streets. Am I wrong? Or?
We have in many years past, and the direction that in recent years we have not used them for these types of purposes, and the administrative decision that I've moved our staff in, with all of the hoops and barrels that you have to go through, compliance-wise, for use of community development block grant dollars, and it has gotten increasingly worse while the total available to us has decreased. It's become apparent to us that the best way to spend these dollars is on infrastructure. The qualifications are much easier to meet at the state level, and it's a competitive process that we can roll into our bidding processes. So it really is a good way in neighborhoods that are troubled, where we can leverage these resources to help extend you know, the projects that we can do relative to infrastructure. So for next year, these dollars would be programmed for the purpose of curb restoration, apron work on, you know, concrete work on aprons and sidewalks, as well as ADA ramps in a portion of that Second Street stretch that really needs it.
If I remember right, was it about 300,000?
The number now, it used to be, there at one point we got about $200,000 a year, and over the years it's reduced. Now it's a 2-year program, so over 2 years we'll get about $160,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything for Councilman Lauterbach and MVRPC, please? Seeing none, we will move to appointed official reports and council comments. First, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a couple of updates tonight. First, I wanted to remind council and our viewing audience that city offices will be closed next Wednesday for Independence Day, as we celebrate an important holiday in our nation's history. So we will reopen for normal business on Thursday the 5th. We, of course, will follow that up with our fireworks festival and First Fridays on July 6th, so a week from this coming Friday. Festivities will start in the park for the festival about 4 p.m. A range of activities include a bike parade, live entertainment, bouncy houses, numerous bouncy houses that will be available, food vendors. Starting at 5 o'clock until 9 o'clock, then downtown we'll have our normal array, in fact, a little bit more robust array of opportunities for vendors and activities, entertainment downtown through our First Fridays event. Warn our general public that, of course, as typical, we will have some road closures supersized for this event, because we will have not only some of our downtown streets closed, Detroit Street closed for the First Fridays, but we will have various streets closed starting about 11 a.m. on Friday the 6th around Shawnee Park. And so those roads will remain closed around Shawnee Park until after the fireworks that evening. So we encourage folks to come out. Most of the events for the First Fridays and the Fireworks Festival are free. Some less than fortunate news to give to council tonight. We of course cooperate through a bidding cooperative for our road salt annually for winter treatments, as even mentioned earlier. The bids came back this year substantially higher, about 60–70% higher than last year. Not here to accuse anyone, but the bid was very odd. I'll just put it at that. And we'll probably return to council first meeting in July with an award of bid. Our barns are full right now, which is a good thing for this year, but we did get a pretty high increase this year. So just an FYI on that. I think it would be appropriate to mention some national news that will affect us here locally. The Supreme Court decision in Janus versus ASME Council 31 is a monumental decision from the federal Supreme Court. It has immediate ramifications even here at the local level. So we've already been collaborating, myself with the law director and finance director, on steps that we need to take. Essentially what this decision has indicated is that in protection of First Amendment rights, that employees of public sector bargaining units cannot be compelled to contribute union dues if they do not wish to contribute union dues, again, in the interest of protecting their First Amendment rights. So there are some steps that we need to take as early as next week to begin to make sure that we are compliant with that Supreme Court decision and protect the city's interest. So we will keep you abreast of some of those things as they move along. The ultimate ramifications of this, I think, are still yet to be seen. But if you have questions along the way, we can certainly answer those. And Mr. Kalp left, but I did want to, there was one issue that was raised earlier, among many that certainly we could address, but there was one issue that I really did want to just bring some clarification to, and it was having to do with the purchase of a house at a price point of $500,000. And this is something that there have been multiple action items that have come back to council in the last year, and I think it's very, very important that we are very transparent on this issue and the challenges that this council and this staff have inherited from a landfill that's been closed for 30 years, resulting from landfill services that date back to the 1930s. And so we are left with the unfortunate price tag and the responsibility to manage EPA regulation requirements for that closed landfill. And we've had minor and not dangerous levels of methane gas that have been leaving that landfill site for about 30 years that we have been monitoring. Due to some changes in how the state is approaching this, the city has had to take very proactive steps to address that concern and ensure safety for our residents as well as compliance with OEPA regulations. Last year, we were essentially told through some findings and orders that the city would be required to install an active extraction system to basically suck those gases out of the ground. The cost of that was estimated to be about $1.3 million. So not only did this council and the staff not act in error by purchasing the property, we actually saved the city considerably, because through purchase of this property, we were able to have the Ohio EPA extend our landfill boundary to the benefit and credit of the city. We actually saved our ratepayers' dollars, and those are through our sanitation fees. So the dollars that are paid for our trash service also provide the resources that we utilize to cover the expenses related to that landfill mitigation. We have no choice. Legally, we are bound to meet these regulations by the Ohio EPA. We have very little choice in that matter, but we negotiated to find an alternative that was more cost effective. And frankly, this is a win for the city, not a cause for concern. And anyone that wants additional information about that, we are more than transparent with those resources, how they've been spent. And anyone who lives in that area that has concerns, we are in active conversation with those individuals, actively monitor that site, and we can provide any information that's requested. So I just wanted to make sure that we were very clear about that particular line item and where those resources went.
One particular point to add to that, thank you, Mr. City Manager. That was an excellent retelling of a factual point related to the acquisition of that property. I believe also in the mini sessions that we met with you on, that $1.3 million value was for, as you described, an active gas extraction mechanism. Those active gas extraction mechanisms, no matter the monetary value of it as compared to purchasing that property, I believe it's correct that there was, quote, no guarantee that that active gas extraction mechanism would have worked sufficiently to resolve the findings and issues that the Ohio EPA had levied against us. And that our only sure way to do that at this time was to extend our landfill boundary.
That is accurate. In fact, I think it's one step further to say that was the installation price. That doesn't include the
Yes.
operating and maintenance expenses, which would have been excessive moving into the future to sustain that equipment. Now, again, it's worth stating also that there is an ongoing legacy issue with compliance at that landfill. These issues are going to not just outlive the careers of any of us sitting around here, it will outlive all of us in physical form. We will probably not in the foreseeable future see a point where these concerns will not be an ongoing annual concern that we have to monitor, stay compliant with, and unfortunately it's going to cost our local residents because we have to have available resources to be able to meet the requirements as set forth, for us by the federal and state government. So
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. City Manager?
that is all I have this evening.
Any questions for the City Manager, please?
I'm going to comment on that too. Financially, it was a no-brainer for council, and humanely, it was the right thing to do. So that's just my personal opinion. Also, Mr. Law Director, I thought we already have in place, our union employees do not have to join a union presently. Is that correct?
That's correct. What the decision that came down from the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday said, it's been a law in the state of Ohio. The case that was filed was actually out of Illinois. But Illinois and Ohio had the same law. And it's typically a lot of times referred to as a fair share provision or an agency fee. If you are a non-union member, let's say you have a group of police officers and you have a couple that are not union members, they still have to pay what's called a fair share, an agency fee, even if they don't belong to the union, because the union represents all police officers as a class.
Is that presently in the city of Xenia?
That's in state law. State law requires public sector employees, if you're not in a union, but the union bargains on your behalf, that you pay that agency fair share fee, which is typically 70, 80% of whatever the union dues are. What the Supreme Court came out and said is the states cannot force a non-union member to pay fair share fees to the union. The union has to negotiate for them without payment of that.
I didn't understand that.
So that our state legislature, there's 21 other states that have the same fair share. They're gonna have to remove that law off the books. For us, because they have said that's a violation of a non-union member's First Amendment rights, we will have to stop collection of those fees as of yesterday's date.
It's worth noting also, Councilman, that I think all 7 of our contracts have a fair share clause in addition to what the state law says. So at some point, those provisions will have to come out of those contracts.
Unless I'm mistaken, that's only going to affect a handful of our employees.
I don't think we really know.
Yeah, currently.
Right now, yes.
Right, currently, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 people are what we call objectors to those fees.
Yeah.
And so they're paying fair share, but you don't know what the ramifications of the change in the law will be. That number could change, but currently there's not a huge number of people who are non-members who are covered by that those contracts.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for our City Manager, please? Mr. Finance Director.
I have nothing this evening.
Thank you. Madam Law Director.
I wish you all a happy July 4th. May it be safe, sunny, no rain, and good fireworks.
Thank you.
These two, they just keep making me look bad, I might add. I keep talking and they say I have nothing, so.
You take all our things.
Right.
Moving to council comments. Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Saturday, June 23rd, I was able to be a part, not running or walking, but the Race for Recovery. I was allowed to help start the race. It was put on by the Hope Spot and Sober Lotus, and both very active in our community. And one of the things at the Hope Spot, right on the front of their website, it says, "Recovery is necessary for community success." And I think that's that's something that I've been chewing on all week. And I hope to see all of us continue to support places like the Hope Spot. They do really good work. On June 24th, Sunday, myself and Councilman Wallace were able to participate in the Rolling of the Scrolls at Right Place Apartments, and it was a celebration of their 10-year anniversary Vesper services. I wanted to congratulate their anniversary and the committee that does the Vesper services. I know Miss J. Fairbanks Leach does a lot of that. She is 89 years old, very active, and puts on incredible programs, and I'm very thankful for her work. I don't have a whole lot else because I've been on vacation for a while, so I did want to mention that the Xenia Scouts are back in town, and that's great baseball to go to. It's free. It's over at the Athletes in Action Sports Complex, Grady's Field. It's good baseball. It's lovely evenings there, so make sure that you catch one of the games. XeniaScouts.com has the schedule.
Thank you. Councilman Louderback, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one thing. Last week, I think the Attorney General had an article on, this is the time of year for scams. They concentrate on, they prey on the elderly. So just, if you get a phone call, people wanting information, just don't give it out. Matter of fact, I got a phone call yesterday, and it ID'd illegal scam. I've never on my cell phone. Yeah, I've never had that happen before. So maybe somebody's caught on to them. Yeah, just beware, especially the older people. They prey on them. Thank you.
And Councilman, if I might add to your point, thank you for bringing that out. I had not seen that before, but I also have had similar kinds of calls. I always take down the number and I report that number to the sheriff. I would expect that that's how it eventually trickles back, and then when the person chooses to try again, perhaps the phone company is helping them to identify who's really on the other end of the line.
That's good information. I've never seen that before.
So if you do get one of those calls, please do not hesitate to call the local police department or your sheriff, and be sure to report that number of what you believe is an illegal scam.
That's all. Thank you.
Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple things. This was an article in the Dayton Daily News. And you probably can't see this, but a former Xenia teacher, Butch Bolton, he was at Xenia High School for like 30 years. He's run a marathon in 49 out of 50 states in the United States over the last several years. And his last marathon was to finish in Hawaii. And besides being in the front, the Bengals thing caught my attention, and I read that, and I'm like, I know this guy. But anyway, so then this whole last page is devoted to him, and he retired from Xenia. He actually resides in Bellbrook. His wife is a teacher in Bellbrook schools, but he's impacted a lot of kids in the Xenia community, and good friends of Dave Oldegus, who used to run Pinecrest, and he's a runner. So I just thought that was kind of nice to see something positive. And I guess he did complete the 50th state, so last week in Hawaii. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I don't want to steal your thunder if you were going to talk about this, but my church, First Church of Christ on Ledbetter Road, 4th of July program. They're actually tonight practicing for that. That's actually July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, not July 4th. So if you go July 4th, the doors are going to be locked. So a lot of people say, oh, I'll just go on the 4th of July and see it before the fireworks. It is only on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. At 6:30, the Xenia Jazz Band, Greg Sells Jazz Band, is performing for about 30 minutes. So catch that while you can. The actual drama and musical part starts at 7, and there is free pie. Apple, cherry, I don't know what they have, but there's going to be pie there, and I don't know, you can eat it afterwards, I think. So that is a kind of a Xenia tradition. They backed off a couple years. The Richies have been busy with things, but that's back this year. And I think there's a cast of about 60 people involved in that. So it's about an hour program. It's not going to be much longer than that. If you're a veteran, they do honor you in that ceremony. So we appreciate the service of our veterans. Also wanted to mention Thursday, July 5th is a planning and zoning meeting, and it is at 7. I'll be right here. So that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, City of Xenia. Since the mayor was out of town on vacation, we'll have to charge you a tax for a tan. Tan tax.
Well worth it.
The mayor had asked me to speak to a group in her stead. It was a group of motorcycle riders riding from the Colonel Charles H. Young House to Washington, D.C., a distance of about 497 miles on a motorcycle. They called it Dogs on Hogs. That's D-A-U-G-S. And I had the opportunity, along with County Commissioner Tom Kugler, to address the group, along with Mr. Lee Warren's father, who's an original Buffalo soldier. And it was a spectacular event. Had a number of people. Our city manager and assistant city manager were in attendance, and we sent them off. And our local sheriff, Mr. Gene Fisher, he and his posse escorted the bikers to the Greene County line, I'm told. So it's just nice to partner with everybody and see things going good. Everything is not all bad. There's some good to be had, and we need to enjoy that. And the bad things, that's what we're here to work on. So with that, Mr. President, just had a couple of questions for Councilman Dean, if he would allow me. We have 2 traffic lights that I'd like to see nixed. One of them is at the corner of East Main Street and Fair Street. It's a vestige that's been there since the old East High School closed back in the 60s, I think 1962. It was put in to cross Main Street traffic, and pretty much it's superfluous at this point. I see also the same traffic light at South Monroe and Home Avenue. People need to get where they're going in Xenia. We already got it down to 1 lane of traffic in the 4 blocks on Detroit Street, which everybody is, they want my head. And I wish I could section pieces off and give to them, because I was sitting in traffic today. An 18-wheeler was in the 1 lane going down. We had just passed Courthouse Square. And then the next block, there's parking. And to me, I realize that business owners want parking in front of their establishments, but everybody thinks it's a straight-through shot. A guy said, "Can I get in?" Because there was a car parked, and he couldn't see that it was just parking. And I don't know how we can fine-tune this whole situation, but the 4 blocks through downtown from East Church Street down to Home Avenue, pretty much, because after 3rd Street, we kill the lane, and we just bring 1 lane on through. 1 lane through downtown Xenia, I wished I would have been on council when the Ohio Department of Transportation traffic planners wanted to institute that plan. I'd have been 4 square against it. But now it's here, it's your baby, and now I got to do something with it. So with that, Mr. President, just want to wish everybody a happy 4th. Remember, independence wasn't free. It was paid for by blood, sweat, and tears. And we should revel in our independence and not let anybody frill it away or chip it away from us. Our fireworks here in Xenia is going to be held on the Friday after the 4th, which is very good. We ought to get a good turnout. And I see we've spent a nice sum to help the Kevin Sunnycab Foundation do their thing. And that's great. It's what we ought to be spending money on, public amenities to increase the quality of life here in town. So with that, Mr. President, I'd also like to add and thank our public relations director for the job that he's been doing, getting all of us together at one point in time. It's like herding cats. And I have to thank him for that. Good job, sir. And I'd like to see more action being put in the Dayton Daily News. I open the paper, look for what's happening in Xenia, and when you don't see any entries, you figure ain't nothing happening. Well, something is happening here, and we ought to always have some kind of peace in that part of the local section of the Dayton Daily News. With that, Mr. President, I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Dean.
I just want to respond to Councilman Scrivens. For the next traffic commission, we're actually looking at the light at East Main Street and Fair Street. And for the one after that, I can put the South Monroe and Home Avenue light on the next agenda.
Just take your professional look at it. I'll be happy with
Okay,
that.
I will.
Thank
Your
you, sir.
Engineering staff will. You're welcome. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Vice President.
I would just like to wish everybody a happy 4th, and I don't have anything else this evening.
Thank you. I have really 2 items. The first is, with all my colleagues, wishing everyone a happy and safe 4th of July. please come and enjoy our fireworks. Do not enjoy your own fireworks. Fireworks continue to be a distinct problem in terms of causing injury. 100,000 visits to the ER just in Xenia this past year. Let's not add any with fireworks mishaps here in Xenia. Second item, and I will just preface my comments with, words mean something. Words are important. Words must be accurate, especially when words are in an attempt to convey a message or to persuade people to action. I thank the city manager for clarifying that particular point about the acquisition of that particular property that was in the, as I believe all on council agree, truly in the best financial interests of the citizens of Xenia to address the methane gas issue and the Ohio EPA's orders and findings to us. But I also feel, and I typically do not do so, to respond to comments as well. On Facebook, after last council meeting, I and a number of others were particularly maligned with the allegation that people were called cowards. To address this, I'd like to read into the record, and it's already in the record and was approved unanimously by this council, the minutes from the last meeting of my comments. Specifically, I was responding to points from the city manager where he had made an observation that it was not acceptable for people to be personally attacking, in particular, city employees and others on Facebook, because they are working on your behalf and doing the city's business. My comments, which were approved unanimously and cited here, President Engel said he 100% supports Mr. Merriman's points. Regarding Facebook, he did not participate in public forums because of what Mr. Merriman described. He would be happy to discuss things with people in person. And let me add emphasis. Personal attacks are cowardly. I stand by that comment. And I would ask anyone who would disagree with that comment to so state why they would disagree that making an impersonal, personal attack on someone is a cowardly gesture. Now, I will close at that point because, frankly, it's not worth any more conversation. But I would ask everyone, in particular as we head to a decision point on whether there should be a tax for our city's streets, let us remember that words mean something and words need to be factual and not simply for the purpose of conveying or forwarding someone's personal motivation. With that, unless there's something else from one of my colleagues, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Latterback. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Smith. Roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Louderback?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Hasta la vista.